feelings. Here you will discover endless wonders. You could see many of our islands and follow the rhythms of our day. You could follow your desire for perfect seclusion, or follow the call of adventure and connect to ancient tradition. Or the simple beating of your heart. If you follow your feelings, you will sense the mana that flows in all things. Feel treasured in the islands of Tahiti.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Goway Pro Industry Insider webinar series. The last one you would have seen was Down Under and New Zealand. And we did make mention when we were chatting about New Zealand, people going to and from the country of the long white cloud, that you could do a stopover at one of the Pacific Islands on the way. And one of those that was mentioned numerous times was the island group of French Polynesia, or more commonly known as Tahiti. And speaking to us today about the island group, French Polynesia, I'm going to lead into why I'm making that differentiation in a minute, is Dan LeBaron. He is the senior account director of Tahiti Tourism, and he is here today to talk to us all about Tahiti. Now, the reason I keep saying French Polynesia is because, Dan, Tahiti is actually, over to you,
French overseas territory.
Yep. And also Tahiti is an island versus the whole group. How many islands are actually in the group of French Polynesia?
118 islands and atolls in the entire region. The actual geographic area is as large as Europe.
Wow. Okay. So today, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Dan in a moment. What are you focusing on today? Are you focusing on all the islands, which I know would be an impossibility, 118? There is a sort of a subgroup of more popular islands, the most common being Tahiti and Bora Bora. Is that your focus today? Are you going to take us beyond those boundaries?
I think, when we talk to people in the Canadian market about the islands of Tahiti, generally there's a lot of excitement about the destination. People's eyes light up. They know they're very kind of interested in going to the destination, but there's still a lot of education that needs to be done about the destination, and, just reacquainting ourselves with the basics of the inter-island carriers, inter-island ferries and boat services, things like that. So there's a little bit of a reintroduction to the destination. I know Goway is, one of the most adept companies at selling the destination in Canada, but, it's going to be a little bit of a reintroduction. Some of those education pieces that I think are really helpful to kind of have top of mind when you are selling the destination to your Canadian clients. And then a little bit of like a mock itinerary and an overview of the Tahiti Specialist Program at the end.
Wonderful. And I think it's important that what Dan will cover today, in that, as I mentioned before, most people think of Tahiti as the one island, maybe Bora Bora, and the connection between those two is quite easy in common, which Dan will expand on. But as he's already mentioned, there are 118 islands. There are some beautiful areas outside of those main areas. And again, because it's an island chain, getting around is obviously key, which will be Dan's focus today. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Dan, and he will hopefully excite you and, of course, educate you on French Polynesia and obviously Tahiti itself.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. One thing I want to quickly note too before I get started. So, this is a high level presentation. We have a version of this deck that I'm going to go through too that has specific itineraries from several of the different islands that I think might be of interest to the community to review as well. So if if anybody from the community wants to do a deeper dive later on, feel free to reach out to Don, and I'd be happy to share the presentation and a bit of a longer version of it too, with some specific itineraries built out across several of the different islands within the islands of Tahiti. Okay, so I'm going to take everybody through, like I said, a bit of an overview about exploring the islands of Tahiti by sea, and really just selling the dream. Like I said, it's a very, very aspirational destination within the Canadian market. It's been surging in popularity quite a bit lately, especially Q2 of this year. The projections for the rest of the year and the first couple months of the second half of the year have been really, really stellar. So, as Don said, I'm Dan LeBaron, Senior Account Director and the Tahiti Tourism Account Lead. So, anytime you need anything related to Tahiti, reach out to me. My email's here at the bottom. You can either kind of chat with me about it, or I can direct you to whoever on my team would make the most sense for that inquiry. So an overview about the destination, effortless island hopping. Island hopping really is the most common way to travel to the islands of Tahiti. So typically, you'd fly into Tahiti and Papeete, the capital of French Polynesia. But typically, guests like to explore several of the different islands and atolls while they're in the destination. So while you'd include, a short stop in the capital, you'd want to work with your clients to understand what types of experiences they're looking to have and which kind of islands they want to hop around to. And in this presentation, I'm going to go through, some of those companies that can help your clients do that island hopping most effectively. And then, discovering the islands by water. There's so many great options to explore French Polynesia's, natural coastlines and marine ecosystems. So whether that's ferries, cruise ships, which are very popular for the Canadian traveler, I'm going to go through a little bit of that. Culture along every shoreline. Something that's really interesting about French Polynesia is just there's a really distinct culture and tradition no matter where you go. There's a bit of a different kind of feel to all of the different islands and atolls. So you have a bit of a different experience no matter where you go. Some of the cultural experiences that we can, talk through: visiting pearl farms, canoe farmers, local markets, 4x4 tours, food tours. There's really different types of experiences for every different type of Canadian traveler in the destination. And then sailing with comfort and style is another very popular way for Canadians to visit the destination. So catamarans, yachts, small cruises. Again, I'm going to walk you through some of the basics of these during the presentation. So education is needed. We do a lot of webinars. We've been to a lot of trade shows. There's definitely a lot of education that needs to be done with the Canadian public. But even with agents too, there's a lot of education that can be done about some of the basics of the destination, especially for those that haven't sold it a lot in the past. Like I said, I know Goway is pretty adept at selling French Polynesia, but if there is any agents in the community that are still kind of, learning about it, some of these pieces are really important. So reasonable travel time, especially from the west coast of Canada. Very, very reasonable travel time. 8 to 9 hour flight from Seattle or LAX. The Seattle route on Air Tahiti Nui was introduced about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It's been very popular. Like the CEO of Air Tahiti Nui always says, 2 movies and a glass of wine. So I think that when Canadians think about the destination, they think, it's way over by Australia. It's probably a 16, 17-hour flight from Vancouver. So we can dispel that myth through some of this education. And I think it's something that, Canadian travelers are really delighted to hear about when they actually find out how close and manageable it is. And then in the same vein, the manageable time zone difference. So again, from the West Coast, it's only a 2 to 3 hour time zone difference, depending on the time of year. And then from Toronto or the East Coast, it would be 5 to 6 hours. So very manageable time zone difference. You can go do business, leisure travel. You can work. You can do anything you need to do. Communicate with your friends and family back home while you're there as well. So the time zone difference is actually very approachable. Incredibly friendly locals. Everyone in Tahiti will tell you that what makes the place most special is its people. It's a warm Polynesian spirit. The majority of people there do speak very good English, as well as French. And I think you come away and you have these amazing experiences on land and by sea, but you really come away remembering that Polynesian hospitality. And it's not something that feels like it's like put on for the tourists or anything like that. It really just seems like it's their way of life, and they're very kind and friendly people. So that's definitely something that comes through when you do visit the destination. Wi-Fi also typically available, and major credit cards accepted widely. So, this is a destination that is very well equipped for tourists. So at really most popular destinations, whether it's a 5-star resort or even a Tahitian guest house, there will likely be Wi-Fi available, and credit cards are accepted, at most major vendors and all of the big kind of islands and atolls in the destination. Here's just an overview of the flight routes to the islands of Tahiti. So from Canada, really the most popular carrier by far is Air Tahiti Nui from Seattle and from LA. There's also flights that you can take from San Francisco, but Seattle and LA really are the two most popular flight routes. Like I said, the Seattle one is fairly new, just introduced about a year and a half ago. So a quick refresh on the destination, even if you've been selling it for a long time, a quick refresher on some of the key points about French Polynesia. So the official name is French Polynesia, as Don and I discussed earlier. French overseas territory with its own government. So it does follow some French laws, but it does have its own distinct government that rules and governs itself. Its official languages are French and Tahitian, but most hospitality workers have a basic understanding of English, if not very proficient in English. The majority of people are. Papeete is the capital of the islands of Tahiti, which is located on the main island called Tahiti. So as Don said, there's a bit of a distinction there. The destination as a whole is often referred to as the Islands of Tahiti, which encompasses all of the islands and atolls, but Tahiti itself is also the biggest island where the capital resides. One thing that's amazing for Canadian tourists, and something that I really look for when I travel, there's no mass tourism. There's only about 10,000 Canadians visiting the destination per year. So, you do go places, other places like Hawaii, for example, which I love Hawaii. I've been many times. I'm based in Vancouver. It's a great destination, but, there's a lot of tourism there. It's very crowded with tourists. You don't get that experience in the islands of Tahiti. An experience I often like to tell people about. I was in the Marquesas Islands. Me and 3 people that I was with hiked 45 minutes into this really, really stunning beach, gigantic beach as far as the eyes could see. Not one other person was on this beach. It was just the 4 of us on this giant, giant beach all day long. And those are the types of kind of unique experiences you can have in the islands of Tahiti that you can't necessarily have in all the other places that you might go. It's a year-round tropical destination, average temperature about 26 degrees Celsius, and like I said, 2 to 3 hours behind PST. The local currency is the Pacific franc, and tipping is not customary. So when you arrive in Tahiti, the arrival experience is a warm Polynesian greeting, live music, you get a flower lei at the airport, open air terminals with a tropical ambiance. You really do feel like you're in a tropical paradise. This morning I walked outside of my house here in Canada. It was the first day of the year that I was like, wow, it's actually getting kind of cold outside. I needed a sweater for the first time. So it's that time of year when Canadians are going to start thinking about, where can I go to a bit of a warmer, more tropical environment? Tahiti really fits that description. What to expect? Efficient customs and immigration process, typically quite quick. Baggage claim is in the same terminal. Not a very big airport, very quick and efficient airport. Things that you can do to advise your clients on. Look for their transfer guide or hotel rep holding up a sign right near the arrivals gate. And money exchange at the ATM is also available if you didn't get it back in Canada. And then in terms of tips for advisors, encourage clients to book a pre-night in Tahiti to rest before starting island hopping. Sometimes, you get people, they fly into Tahiti, they fly right off to their next destination. We definitely like to advise a little bit of a break just to, refresh and recharge before you head out on that island hopping adventure. In terms of the geography, like I said, 118 islands and atolls across 5 archipelagos. That includes the Society Islands, which, includes popular islands like Tahiti, Moorea, Bora Bora, Hua Hin. The Marquesas are geographically the furthest from the capital, very remote and rugged, includes Nuku Hiva and Hiva Oa. The Tuamotus are a collection of islands known for some of the best diving in the world, so that includes Rangiroa and Whakarava. The Austral Islands are a bit lesser known, less tourists, but, a little bit less infrastructure for tourism, though still quite popular. So that includes Rurutu and Tubai. And then the Gambier Islands, remote and mountainous, amazing hiking, outdoor adventure, things like that. And that includes islands like Mangareva. So there are marine routes between the Society, Tuamotu, and Marquesas Islands. And of course, some of the appeal of cruising is the incredible scenery there, really amazing to take in, slow travel and cultural immersion, which is offered on many of the vessels that do transport people between islands. In terms of nautical activities, there's really no shortage of nautical activities that you can do in the islands of Tahiti. So snorkeling and diving, very, very popular, exploring coral reefs, underwater caves, and marine life. Lagoon tours, glass bottom boats, jet skis, traditional canoes offering scenic rides in turquoise waters. Excuse me. Fishing, really epic fishing in the destination. Whale watching, it's whale season right now until about February. Very popular and an abundance of whales in the destination. And then, of course, surfing and paddleboarding. Places like Chopu, where the Olympics were held, are really designed for expert surfers, whereas there's more kind of intermediate waves around different parts of the destination. Island hopping 101, there's really two ways to do it, by air and by sea. If you are going by air, Air Tahiti and Air Moana operate regular flights. Multi-island passes make it easy to visit multiple destinations, and private flight transfers are available. By sea, cruises and expedition ships connect many of the archipelagos, the Aranui, the Polynesian, and the Windstar, which I am going to walk you through. Yachts and catamarans offer leisurely immersive exploration, and ferries are available on shorter routes as well. Traveling to French Polynesia, we kind of went through this already. Air Tahiti Nui is the primary carrier from Canada, with flights through LA and Seattle. Inter-island by air, so you have the two major airlines here, Air Tahiti and Air Moana. Round-trip services, Tahiti to 48 islands on Air Tahiti. They also recently introduced a new business class offering on board their aircraft. And then Air Moana, round-trip services, Tahiti to Moorea, to Raiatea, Bora Bora, Rangiroa, Nukuhiva, and Hivaoa. So mostly the Society Islands and the Marquesas, daily rotations and weekly rotations, as well as round-trip services between round-trip services between Society and Tuamotu Islands, which is what I just spoke to. Inter-island travel by sea, very popular way to do it as well. These are kind of the collection of ferries that go between the Society Islands. So Tahiti to Moorea, daily rotations on the Aramidi and the Teraveo. And then the Apatahi Express takes you a little bit further. So from Tahiti to Hua Hin, Raiatea, Taha, Bora Bora, 2 to 3 rotations a week. And then the Veare takes you from Tahiti to Hua Hin, Raiatea, Taha, and Bora Bora. So a lot of kind of inter-island options between these ferries that take you between the Society Islands, and then also some of those diving destinations as well. And then cruising, very popular for the Canadian segment. So Polynesian cruises are luxury, all-inclusive cruises. Premium small ship luxury cruise line, 165 ocean view rooms and suites. Itinerary focus would typically be Society Islands and Tuamotu Archipelago, so Papeete, Moorea, Bora Bora, Hua Hin, Taha, and Rangiroa. Some unique features of these vessels, all-inclusive pricing, like I said, gourmet dining, beverages, gratuities, and shore excursions, really just equipped for every different type of tourist and what they're looking for. Onboard cultural programming and Tahitian hospitality. And then shallow draft allows closed access to lagoons and smaller islands for things like snorkeling and excursions. This vessel is really ideal for honeymooners, upscale travelers, and those sort of seeking a relaxed luxury feel. Windstar cruises, again, the 3 cruise lines I'm taking you through are the most popular for the Canadian travel segment. So Windstar is luxury sailing yachts and small ships, 74 ocean view staterooms, so a little bit smaller than the Polynesian. Itinerary focus, again, mostly the Society Islands and then some of those diving destinations as well. Unique features, tall masted ships for a true sailing feel, small group shore excursions and water sports platform, and high-end culinary experiences. So this one's kind of ideal for active travelers, sailing enthusiasts, and those kind of boutique luxury seekers in the Canadian travel segment. And then Aranui Cruises is a hybrid cargo passenger ship that still offers an authentic cultural immersion. 103 cabins. What's very, very cool about these vessels is that, yeah, like I said, they're actually transporting cargo that's vital to these islands, cultural ecosystems, food, materials needed for building, all kinds of things like that are actually transported on board the vessel. But you still have that kind of cruise ship, pseudo luxury feel on board as well. So the itinerary focus here goes a little bit deeper and wider into the depths of the islands of Tahiti. So the Society Islands and Tuamotu still, but you also have the Marquesas Islands. So Papeete, Rangiroa, Nukuhiva, Hivaoa, Fatuhiva, and Uapu, and more. So Society Islands, Tuamotu, but you can go a little bit further on the Aranui as well. The unique features too, so the Aranui has a 100% Tahitian crew and also has onboard lectures about cultural immersion. It visits remote communities not accessible by other cruise lines, like I said. And yeah, that cargo delivery is a really kind of cool feature of this vessel that you don't get on board other cruise liners. This is ideal for those really adventurous travelers, and culture seekers, and off the beaten path explorers. So the Marquesas is a very special part of the islands of Tahiti. It's typically said, people don't typically go on their first or second trip. Maybe it's like their third or fourth trip to the destination, but very, very, very rugged, remote destination. That's the place that I said I went, where we went on the hike and there wasn't a single tourist there. There is a relay and chateau property on Nukuhiva that's really, really beautiful. And it's really the only kind of luxury property on the destination on that particular island. So very remote and rugged, and for those kind of seeking a unique adventure. Choosing the right islands is all about matching your client's interest to island types. So we often like to say there's different experiences for every different type of Canadian traveler in the destination. So whether you're just looking for a luxury romance, kind of a laid back trip, whether you're really seeking adventure and want to, do something off the beaten path, there is something for everyone. For the luxury and romance side, honeymooners, things of that nature. Bora Bora, Taha, Moorea, very popular. Adventure and nature, Huahin, Nukuhiva, Moorea, really great places. Moorea hosts a very large ultra marathon every year, so it has amazing rugged forests for hikes, things like that. It's actually the closest island as well to Tahiti. You just need one quick ferry over there, and you're there in about 20 minutes. And then diving and marine life, Rangiroa, Whakarava. I actually did my intro diving certificate in Rangiroa. Incredible place for diving. Whakarava has something called the Wall of Sharks, where there's about a sea of hundreds and hundreds of sharks that you just can swim right through. So really epic and iconic diving in the destination, especially in those two islands. A booking tip is that we're actually seeing people booking a little bit further out right now than we've seen in the past. So recommend booking at least 6 to 12 months out for your client's trip, especially if they're going during high season, which is May to October. There's a number of different resorts that are doing renovations next year, so the inventory will be a little bit lower than usual. So definitely recommend, if your clients are interested in the destination, thinking about booking that sooner rather than later, just based on some of those factors for next year. And then tips for advisors, a mix of well-known and lesser visited islands. So we're definitely trying to promote and highlight the places outside of Bora Bora, because that's the most kind of stereotypical island that people have all seen on the postcards. But the reality is most Canadian travelers want to go to Bora Bora, and they want that to be part of the itinerary. So why not mix a place like Bora Bora in with some of the lesser visited and less known islands where, they can have an experience that they haven't even heard or seen about on social media yet. So really mixing it up and having a combination of well-established islands versus some new and up-and-coming islands is, what we would recommend. A focus on 2 to 3 islands, maybe 4, depending on the length of the trip, to reduce travel fatigue. And then you can get those inter-island and multi-passes to simplify logistics and also save a bit of money on air travel as well. Here's just a sample itinerary. Like I said, I can send through a more comprehensive deck that has a sample itinerary from several of the different islands that I spoke to during this presentation. I know you're all very busy. You have a lot on the go. I didn't want to make the webinar too lengthy today, but I just did kind of want to give you a high-level overview of what we see as kind of the most commonly booked itinerary, but of course, a lot of room for mixing and mashing it based on kind of what your client's interests are. So here's a sample 10-night itinerary that combines sea, land, and inter-island travel. So 2 nights in Papeete at La Tahiti by Pearl Resorts. Pearl Resorts is an amazing company with some great Canadian reps that have a number of different resorts in the destination. So we definitely suggest a little bit of time in the capital. There's an amazing cultural history museum that was recently renovated. It's really a fantastic place to visit. There's a Pearl Museum. You can drive to the other side of the island and see Chiopu, the mythical wave that was hosted Olympic surfing in the most recent Olympics. There's an amazing market. You can visit the government buildings. So there's a lot of amazing experiences to have in the capital. So a couple nights there is recommended. And then you could do something like a 3-night yacht charter experience. Again, we have a lot of vendors we work with for this. So if you do ever need kind of contacts, local industry partners, reach out to us. We can get you connected. So some amazing places to do something like that would be Moorea, Hua Hin, and Bora Bora. And then, 3 nights in Bora Bora, like I said, it is that kind of more stereotypical Tahitian experience, but there's a reason it's stereotypical. It's because Canadians love it so much. It's so beautiful, truly and genuinely one of the most beautiful places I've ever laid my eyes on in person. And a valuable part of any itinerary to the destination. And then 2 nights in Taha. Pearl Resorts has another amazing resort there with overwater bungalows. You can do some day trips where you can, visit a pearl farm. You can visit a distillery that they have in Taha, a rum plantation. There's all kinds of different things you can do there and some really kind of fun excursion options. Inclusions that would help benefit you and your clients: inter-island flights with Air Tahiti Nui, again, getting that inter-island pass to save a little bit of money on those flights. Hotel stays typically do come with breakfast, but something that you should definitely check into and be aware of kind of what the charges will be for that ahead of time. Ground transfer and excursions, you're going to want to make sure that that's all covered ahead of time. They do have Uber, they do have cabs, but typically the way that people like to visit the destination is to have kind of all of that ground support and transfers settled ahead of time. And then, of course, you're going to want to have a lot of experiences with locals. So myself personally, everyone I've talked to that's visited the destination, some of the most amazing kind of parts of the visit are some of those daily excursions. So in Bora Bora, whether it's a snorkeling lagoon excursion with a local that you get to kind of eat on a local motu, maybe their family's land where you can have a picnic, things like that are very common. 4x4 excursion on Taha where you can visit a rum plantation, things like that. Very, very fun and interesting. Last time I was there, we had our guide. He took a branch from a tree and turned it into a flute with just his knife out of his pocket and played complete music out of this flute. It was one of the coolest kind of things that I've seen a local guide build in about 20 seconds. So the guides are very, very, very knowledgeable about the land. The majority of them have lived there their entire lives. It's just you want to definitely mix in as many experiences with locals as you can just so that they get a feel for the culture and the personality of the place. Selling Tahiti packages, just some tips. Who's your target traveler? Luxury clients are definitely looking for premium accommodations and services. There's a lot of great offerings for that in Tahiti. You just want to make sure that the destination and the resort that you are recommending for them meets the standards that they're expecting. Canadian travelers, of course, seek exclusivity. So a lot of these excursions can be exclusive excursions. Of course, that would come at a bit of a higher price point, but you can seek out those exclusive excursions where possible. And then the culture-focused clients are, of course, interested in authentic experiences. And yeah, like I said, the destination is really a natural fit for that. Every tour I've ever been on, which has been probably, around 10 at this point, always felt very, very authentic, guided by locals. So I don't think you'll have a problem with that. And then packaging tips, combining those inter-island flights, cruises, and land stays for a well-rounded trip, just making sure that you can make it the most cost-effective as possible. We know that the Canadian dollar isn't amazing for the last kind of 12 to 18 months. So Canadians are looking for value and they are looking for cost-effective opportunities. That also, in that same vein, including meal packages and hotel pricing adds more value. And then must-do excursions like lagoon tours, cultural village visits, things like that again. Sales strategies. So their low season is kind of the season that Canadians are looking to get away. So it's our fall and our winter. So there's really an opportunity there where you can send your clients there during a time that Canadians are naturally really seeking a tropical destination, trying to get out of the Canadian winter, the rainy Vancouver fall here for us. So it really kind of works out well with when their low season is for the Canadian traveler. And then leverage our resources, training, and tools, which I'm going to speak to a little bit more on the coming couple slides. So advisor resources, we do have the Tahiti Specialist Program. If any of you are not members already, I highly advise you to take the leap and join in and get started. It's very, very easy to do so. So what is the Tahiti Specialist Program? It's an online training program to become a certified Tahiti specialist. It gives you access to exclusive content, webinars, fam trip opportunities. It does boost your credibility a little bit and your confidence selling the destination to clients when you are a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3 TSP. It just shows, that for at least for level 1, you at least know a lot of the core basics about the destinations. But up to level 3, it means you've actually been to the destination, seen it with your own eyes, experienced it, and are very adept at selling it and understanding kind of everything about what the destination stands for. You also will get access to the Tahiti Tourism Brand Center if you join the TSP program. So you can download high quality images, videos, logos for marketing use, ready-made brochures, flyers, promotional materials, all kinds of marketing collateral that you can use in your own work, and a content library that supports social and digital as well. Here's just kind of a couple slides with my colleague Zara for what the TSP program looks like. So you join up, you take a series of online modules. I would say the whole thing maybe takes about 40 minutes to complete all 3 of the modules. So an intro in geography, the Tahitian experience, practical tips on how to prepare for your trip, really just the basics. Once you've completed just the modules, you'll become a level 1 TSP. And then you basically graduate up through the program by uploading your actual bookings to the platform itself. Very, very straightforward process. You enter in some simple information. You upload a PDF of the receipt. And as you gradually upload more, you'll graduate through the levels of the TSP program. In order to be a level certified TSP level 3, you need to have visited the destination within the past 2 years as well. So level 1 is just doing the training itself. Level 2 is reaching a certain threshold with your sales. And then level 3 is reaching another threshold with your sales, but having actually visited the destination as well. A couple TSP agent perks as well beyond what I spoke to on the other slide. So there are rewards that you can tap into. We do have an annual TSP appreciation dinner in major Canadian cities each year. Typically that's Vancouver, Toronto, and Quebec, but we're also looking at potentially doing one in Alberta as well, as that market is kind of emerging in popularity. Special experiences, opportunity to participate in an annual fam trip. Typically, we host about 3 to 4 agents in the destination, just people that have been the most active and engaged with the TSP program, people that have been uploading their bookings, attending our events, and just kind of engaging with the platform and with the destination on an annual basis. You also get access to our listing portal. So if you have packages that you want to upload to the vacation package section of our website, you're able to do so once you are part of the TSP program, which is, really helpful. And you can upload a different variety of vacation packages, so luxury, guest houses, whatever you are selling in the destination, you can put your own name on it so that people can actually go to our website, click learn more, and then get sent directly to email you, which is great because we also have a very, very robust paid and digital media program in market, directing Canadians that are interested in tropical destinations, that are interested in French Polynesia, to visit those vacation package section of our website. So essentially you can tap into this program, which we put a lot of spend behind, and get access to would-be Canadian travelers free of charge just by being part of the TSP program. And then, like I said, access to the brand center, thousands of high-res, amazing photos on there, videos, logos, brochures, anything that you need. Here's just a quick overview of what the 2025 Canada Trade Fam looked like. So again, these were some TSP agents that had uploaded a lot of bookings to the platform, were very engaged with us, attended some different events, and they were rewarded with an all expenses paid fam trip that my colleague Zara, pictured here, hosted a couple months ago in the destination. So they actually visited 5 islands. It was really, really action packed. Part of the point of the trip is, of course, to reward with an amazing vacation. But then part of the point of the trip also is to fit in a lot of site visits and make sure that your education on the destination and some of its top properties that you might be selling is kind of modern and up to date. So they visited the 12 properties I've listed here, a lot of high-end luxury properties, as these agents were kind of skewing a little bit more towards that luxury audience. Overnight stays at the Conrad Bora Bora, St. Regis Bora Bora, La Taha, La Tiki Hau, Hilton Tahiti, and Te Moana. So just a collection of fantastic resorts. And then experiences, they actually got to experience 4 different excursions. So a lagoon tour, a sunset, ocean tour, a food tour, and a 4x4 tour. So just to give them the kind of variety of the different experiences that you can have in the destination that they would then go on to sell to their clients. And that's about it. I know we had an hour. Again, I know, the agent communities out there, very, very busy, a lot on the go. So wanted to just do a bit of a reintroduction on the destination, some of the basics about what your clients need to know in terms of inter-island travel, whether that's by land or by sea. And yeah, just a little bit of those education pieces that I think are so vital and important for the market as well. So I'll end it there. I can open it up to questions or, a further discussion with Don, but that's all that I had for today.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Dan. As Dan just mentioned, that's a lot in a small period of time. There's many aspects of French Polynesia, Tahiti itself, and the Tahitian Islands. And again, this was an overview. So I do have I have some questions for Dan, some observations as well off the back of his presentation in no particular order. The first being, Dan often mentioned throughout this presentation, a Canadian agent. Our current co-op partnership is focusing on the Canadian market, but pretty much everything Dan said there relates to the US traveler and also agent as well. I would like to clarify that because I think our US agents will be asking a question. You mentioned the FAM for the Canadian agents. I would assume at times there are also opportunities for our US agents to partake in a FAM based on the criteria that you would lay out. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically I am the account lead for Tahiti Tourism Canada. There's also a very robust, large team in place for Tahiti Tourism USA. So that's something that they would coordinate through Tahiti Tourism USA. The US is actually the #1 tourist destination to French Polynesia each year. So they have a very, very large, trade-focused program in market in the US. So I would imagine, some of the community is already connected with the U.S. team, but if not, and they want to get connected and learn about how they could become a bit more involved, they could still reach out to me and I'd be happy to put them in touch with my U.S. counterparts.
Yeah. And again, just from experience working with Tahiti, as Goway has for almost its 55 years in business, usually what happens in Canada is reflective in the US and vice versa. There might be some little differences, but
sure.
Basically, what I'm saying is our US agents, you won't miss out. Don't worry about that. On the US side of things, though, Dan also mentioned the Canadian dollar is not so great around the world at the moment. However, on the flip side, the US dollar is very strong. So a trip down there for any US client would be very beneficial from the exchange rate point of view. So again, these questions back to Dan are in no particular order. The outer islands of the French Polynesian group, I would assume that they are generally quieter than the 2 big main islands, Tahiti and Bora Bora. So if someone's looking to get away from crowds, the outer islands would be a good choice.
Absolutely. Like I said, I kind of had a unique experience because my first time going to the destination, we wound up getting to go to the Marquesas, which is, like I said, it's the most remote part of Tahiti. Actually, one of the most remote parts of the entire world. When you look at yourself when you're on a map there, you're just a tiny little speckle and there's no landmarks anywhere near you. You really do feel like you're kind of isolated in the middle of kind of nowhere. There's nothing anywhere around you, but that's very kind of peaceful in a way, right? And the scenery and the landscape there was like nothing I've ever seen. It was really, really, really stunning. And yeah, very, very few tourists there. Like I said, there is a Pearl Resorts Relay and Chateau property on Nukuhiva, but that's really the only kind of infrastructure set up there for tourists from a resort perspective. You could go and stay in something like a Tahitian guest house or a vacation rental like an Airbnb if you're looking for even more of that cultural immersion opportunity. But beautiful property there and very kind of remote and completely unspoiled by tourists. It's really was an amazing experience.
Right. So you sort of answered my next couple of questions, which was if you do go to the outer islands, do you have the same levels of accommodation available? Because Tahiti is known, again, on its main islands for the beautiful resorts, etc. So you've already answered that there is a resort in the Marquesas, but generally speaking, the accommodation levels would be of a lower level, but still beautiful in that it's Airbnb or, again, to me, to highlight, you'd be on the more cultural side by staying with local families in Airbnb.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's going to be a variety ultimately because there are 118 of the islands and atolls, right? So out of that 118, certainly there's some that aren't as set up for tourists, some that aren't places that tourists typically go, but the top 20, 30 islands are very equipped for tourism. And even the lesser known ones, it would just be a bit more of a rugged experience. So I would say, yeah, just, do your research, understand kind of what exists there in terms of infrastructure when it comes to whether it's vacation rentals, whether it's resorts and all of that. Just do your research if you are looking for some of those really kind of under the radar, lesser known islands, though I think, the vast majority of them are well set up for tourism.
Yeah. And again, our destination specialists here can help you
Sure.
in that research and even offer up ones we know about already. So still on that subject of different choices of accommodation, coming back to the two main areas, Tahiti and Bora Bora, again, both those islands or island chains are known, at least are marketed this way for their high-end luxury, the overwater bungalows, the stunning vistas of the mountains and the lagoons. If someone is looking for a more budget-focused stay on those two island groups, are there budget options on Tahiti and in and around Bora Bora?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of budget-friendly options, especially on Tahiti. It really depends what you're looking for. So if you just want to go stay in a hotel, but you're working on a little bit tighter of a budget, there's a lot of 3-star hotels, more transient business-focused hotels, things like that. So there's tons of hotel options out there that aren't necessarily the 5-star hotel that's also going to come with the 5-star price tag. But like I said, too, there's also a lot of interesting kind of cultural immersion opportunities. So if you're somebody that wants to go there and have an off the beaten path experience and really immerse yourself in the culture in a really unique way, something like staying in a Tahitian guest house could be something that would be really, really interesting for you. So, that's where you actually stay physically in the guest house of a local family that lives there. So there's really a wide range of kind of how those guest houses are set up. So some of them are almost like a mini kind of resort onto of itself. They're equipped with high-speed Wi-Fi and they drop you off an amazing fruit plate in the morning. And, it's almost feeling like you're at a resort, but it's a little more cultural immersion because you are joining the family for meals and stuff like that. And then there's a more kind of places that are just a bit more rugged and are just there to kind of rest your head at night, right? So there's a lot of different low-cost options. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. And then, of course, Airbnbs, vacation rentals. There's a lot of actually like villa rentals as well that are quite popular. Say you're going with a couple other families and you're all kind of wanting to stay together. Renting a villa together can be actually a much more cost-effective option than staying at some of the resorts sometimes. So it depends a little bit about just what you're looking for, but there are definitely options out there that are more cost-effective.
Okay, so basically there are budget options if someone is on a budget looking to go to Tahiti, and we are aware of as well. And as you mentioned, if you do have a group or families or otherwise, let us know, because as Dan mentioned, we could look into the rental of villas and other accommodation options based on budget available. I'd like to go back to something you mentioned about getting around the islands with Air Tahiti Nui, the Air Pass. Do you get any discount on the Air Pass if you buy your international with Air Tahiti Nui, or it's basically just a standalone Air Pass around the islands itself?
It's typically more, it would be more with the direct carrier on the inter-island flights specifically. So Air Moana and Air Tahiti.
And again, the main carrier. So again, you might have mentioned this, so please excuse me if I am asking you again. Air Tahiti Nui is the main carrier. Where do they fly out of Canada and the US? If you can answer that for us, please.
Unfortunately, they don't fly out of Canada, so you have to fly to Seattle or drive to Seattle or LA. And then there's also flights through other carriers through San Francisco, but we've seen that by far the most two popular routes are through Seattle and through LA. So it kind of depends what you're looking for. Like, somebody from Toronto, for example, they might want to fly into LA, spend a day or two in LA and have that experience and then fly out of there. Also, you get to break up the travel a little bit in that way. But for me and for people that are based on the West Coast in Vancouver, it's very, very convenient to just fly to Seattle. It's only a half an hour flight to Seattle. And then it's about like an 8.5 hour flight from Seattle. So it's not too bad overall of a travel day. And, the Seattle airport is quite nice, not too busy. So it's a great option for West Coasters for sure.
I actually flew Air Tahiti Nui to Australia a couple of years ago, last year. And just talking just the airline itself, an amazing airline. Fantastic service, good planes. I can't speak to it. Yeah.
They offer some even cultural immersion from the second you get on the airline. Really, mostly all local Tahitians that are working on the airline. It's a beautifully designed aircraft as well, with a lot of kind of Polynesian art, things like that. You're given a flower that has an amazing scent on it right when you get on board, so you kind of already get that vacation feel. They even do a wardrobe change halfway through the flight to a different Polynesian outfit. So there's a lot of kind of fun cultural immersion there that happens, and it's a great airline.
And you're in Tahiti pretty much already without having taken up. It's pretty cool. Okay. Two other things. One, the Tahitian specialist course that Dan mentioned is obviously the one sponsored by the Tourism Board. There's an equivalent for the Americans as well. Goway also has its Goway Pro Travel Academy, and we have about 5 or 6 modules on Tahiti and the outer islands. Again, all destinational focus as well. Dan, I would assume that once you go through the basics of your specialist program, it gets into more of the properties available, etc. It gets a bit more in depth with the product in your specialist program.
A little bit. It's pretty high level though on the intro to the destination, and more things like the types of activities you can do, and a little bit less of the actual partners you'd work with. So I would say it's actually pretty high level, but yeah, like I said, if anybody needs any kind of tips or local industry partners kind of, outside of what they already have, we'd be happy to connect people with more as well.
And if you do the Tahiti Tourism, specialist program, and then do the Goway Pro Travel Academy, you will be truly a specialist in the destination. From our side of the world, if you do your Tahiti modules, then make a booking within 6 months of completing that module, you'll earn $50 on your Goway Pro rewards card. So there's that incentive as well, plus all the incentives that Dan listed through the Tahiti Tourism Specialist program itself. Yeah, doing both. Yeah, damn right. Just to finish off, so Dan did mention that he has accessible to you, our agents out there, be it Canadian or be it American, a more in-depth PowerPoint presentation. So I will put up Dan's information again now. So if you want that, you can reach out to him directly, and he'll either send it to you or bounce you to the US representative if you are a US agent. He also highlighted in his presentation some sample itineraries. As part of our co-op together, I'd like to point out 3 Goway ones, which take in a lot of what Dan has discussed today. I'll put up the pages as I'm mentioning them here. We have Tahiti 3-island love affair with airfare. Quite often, Goway, being an air consolidator, will package our South Pacific product, that's Australia, New Zealand, and all the South Pacific islands, with airfare, because we have very, very strong buying power down there. So quite often with Tahiti, we will be offering packages with airfare, and this is one with it. We then have Tahiti and Bora Bora overwater luxury escape with airfare, and then Magical Tahiti and Moorea escape with airfare, and then, of course, for the honeymooners and the romantics out there, Bora Bora dreaming with airfare once again. So I'll put the links up here on the screen, the pages, so they would be good places to start when you're looking at your Tahiti planning with your clients out there. Dan, is there anything else you'd like to leave our listening audience with before we say goodbye?
Well, I mean, just on the packages you just said, I just wanted to say, Goway's been an amazing partner of ours. We had an amazing co-op partnership that we did together last year. We're doing one together again this year. Like I said, kind of at the top of the presentation, the numbers we've seen from Canadians traveling to Tahiti, especially for the second half of 2025, have been really amazing, like double-digit growth. So, Goway certainly played a key part in that. So thank you to you and the team for your partnership, and we've loved working with you. And yeah, I'd say there's no substitute for going to the destination. So if you've had a client that's been, on the fence or has been wanting to go for a while, people really get it about French Polynesia once they've been there and experienced it with their own eyes and immersed themselves in the culture, and then really often want to go back because there's no other place kind of quite like it. So if you're on the fence or you have clients that are on the fence, take the plunge, go during our fall and winter when it's a little bit more cost effective, and you'll see the magic of the destination and understand what it's all about firsthand.
Yeah, it's a beautiful destination due to its size, geographical size, spread over the Pacific. It's, again, I think Dan mentioned one in his presentation, it doesn't have to be a one-time visit. There's so much to see and do throughout. It is a standalone destination, obviously, for the reasons we've just mentioned and Dan has expounded upon in his presentation, but it's also very popular and suggested stopover on the way to or from or both to either New Zealand or Australia, both of which of those countries are multiple visits. So you can keep going back to Tahiti directly or indirectly on your trips down under. So on that note, again, I'd like to thank Tahiti Tourism for their support over the years. I'd like to thank Dan for his time today. And again, as always, thank you to you, our agents out there, for your time and giving us your time, because we know, as Dan alluded to, how busy you are, but we hope you picked up a lot of good information today on the wonderful islands of Tahiti. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much, Don.